Hello everyone, welcome to another video by Storytime Productions, and also our first English video. These videos probably won't be as common as the Spanish ones, to be honest, but still, if it's something that interests you, feel free to subscribe as they will come to the channel from time to time. Also, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and feel free to give us feedback in the comment section. Without further ado, let's begin. Every movement of hers was slow and precise. One wrong step and her entire plan will crumble. Like a ghost, she silently went through the parking lot, being careful of not being noticed. She arrived at block 3 and exhaled deeply. She was getting close. That night, she was dressed in full black. She had thought of wearing a mask, but ultimately decided not to, as it would get in the way more than it was worth. As she moved through the night by the brick building, a small voice in her head, full of questions, started to get in the way of her plans. It wasn't the first time she attempted to carry out this plan, but the risk of being caught was always there. She took a turn to the right and there she found it. A ridiculous-looking green staircase that connected with each apartment. Her heart was beating rapidly. She took a deep breath and started going up. The lack of proper maintenance made the metal in the staircase screech with every step she took. After just a couple steps though, the voice in her head became so loud that she had to stop and consider what this night could lead to. If a single neighbor was to wake up, her entire plan would fail. In the midst of her anxiety, she started to remember her last failed attempt. However, this was not enough to stop her, as in her mind the goal was worth it. She gave one more step, and realizing the screeching noise was getting louder the further she went, she stopped. And just like last time, she decided to continue crawling. This way her weight would be distributed more evenly across the staircase, minimizing the noise. As she passed the first apartment, a dog started barking through the window. She froze as a light went on. Has her entire plan just gone down the drain? She lay down using the shadows as camouflage. Luckily, her dark clothes helped her go unseen by the little girl looking out the window. She waited off a couple minutes until the little girl, letting off a mix of a disappointed and confused gesture, closed the window and, judging by how late it was, probably went to her bed afterwards, the dog following her. Brenda continued her way up the staircase, crawling slowly, making sure to minimize any noise coming from her as much as possible. 20 minutes later, she was finally in the 4th floor next to the last apartment of block 3. No one was there, and not a single light was on. There she was, wishing her luck was better than last time, when one of the neighbors noticed her and called the police. That time she had to run down the screechy staircase fueled by the fear of being trapped and adrenaline rushing through her veins. She was forced to hide in a dumpster, nearly being caught by the police for attempting robbery and trespassing private property. Breathing deeply, she tried to focus. She looked for a way into the apartment that would avoid making any significant noise. She left the staircase through a wooden hall, which wasn't in much better condition than it, until finally she made her way to the main entrance of the apartment to the end of the hall. However, this time a new problem presented itself. Brenda knew how to unlock standard locks with a paperclip. However, the locks in the door were not standard. The neighbors had changed the original locks for high-end security ones. Suffice it to say, her paperclip was not enough to open them. She thought about her options for a while and finally decided to imitate action movies and try to make her way in through the terrace. Making up a new plan was not easy. At this point, she had taken more time than she had anticipated, and the coolness of the night combined with a strong wind that started to resonate in the old rusty staircase weren't turning things in her favor. In the distance, she could see the lights of the neighborhood. It was a dark, moonless and cloudy night. Soon after, she started seeing lighting in the distance and listening as rainfall approached. However, she had already come this far, and neither this nor the memory of her last failed attempt was enough for her to give up after how far she had gotten this time. Very carefully, she managed to climb to the roof of the building by using the bars of a window as steps. This was probably the riskiest part of the entire plan, as the cold wind was numbing her hands. The rain made the window bars very slippery, and a threatening fall of 4 stories would await if she had made a mistake here. As she was crawling on top of block 3, she surveilled the area looking for the trapdoor which led to the apartment. She had found the trapdoor that she was desperately looking for. It had one standard lock, which she should have been able to open using a paperclip. However, at the moment she started holding the lock with her hands, she started shaking. She was one step away of her objective, but she couldn't bring herself to open the lock. She tried to convince herself she was doing the right thing. or at least what she needed to do. Through the last 3 years, ever since her first failed attempt, she had been planning this moment, justifying this to herself as one last big crime which would put an end to this chapter in her life. The plan was to steal a big amount of money, get herself a cheap apartment, proper food, and open a small store.
Society frowns upon burglars as lazy individuals which instead of working would rather hijack the hard-earned stuff of others. However, at this moment, my circumstances will not allow me to get a job very easily. I mean, it is one thing to tell people to get a job, but these comments come from people who would not be willing to offer me a job even if they were in a position to do so.
All these thoughts went through her mind until she managed to open the lock. The first thing she saw was a pot of golden tokens. She took them all. She estimated about $500,000 worth of gold in total as she climbed down the staircase with her bag full of tokens. She heard a scream coming from the first floor followed by a gunshot. She ran down, leaving the bag behind. That is when she saw the little girl being threatened by an armed burglar through the window. Her dog had fallen after a gunshot and her mother, the only other person in that apartment, had been tied up to a wooden chair.
Give me all the money you have. Better start packing, or your mother will have the same fate as your pooch,
he said. At that moment, Brenda broke through the window and interrupted his demands. She offered him all the golden tokens if he left the apartment alone, to which he accepted. They walked up the staircase, in her head feeling a mixture of anger and sadness as how her plan for a better life had gone downhill. That was until she handed him the bag full of golden tokens. As the burglar made his way down, the rusty staircase broke, trapping him in the third floor. The guy was not in what could be considered a fit shape per se. His beer belly was keeping him stuck in between the steps. At that moment, he threatened Brenda with his gun for tricking him, thinking this was all part of her plan. But right as he pulled the trigger, he realized he was out of ammo. Brenda picked the phone that the burglar had dropped as he fell, and called the police, knowing full well she could get in trouble by doing so. They came shortly after. It turned out Brenda had just captured one of her country's most wanted criminals. For this, she was about to collect a reward worth $300,000. However, the situation made it so she had to confess her attempt at robbery. The police took her as well, but before that, the little girl from the first apartment ran over and gave her a big hug.
Thank you for saving my mommy,
she said. After a court case, it was decided she would be given 500 hours of community service, but that she could still collect her reward after this. During her community service, she saw the little girl walking her dog. It was limping as one of the legs had to be amputated after the incident. But other than that, it was fine. They smiled as they exchanged looks at each other. After the entire community service was done, she talked to herself.
It's hard to think I spent 3 years of my life thinking I was destined to be a thief. That is what the world deserved for taking everything from me. Yet all that time, I was the most toxic person that I spent time with. Most of my suffering was self-driven, but that is over. I am in a better chapter now.
It's impressive the unexpected turns which life can take. Sometimes telling right from wrong is not a black and white situation. Thank you for listening. Have a good day, and feel free to join us for future videos, both in Spanish and in English.